Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first and listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined by Josh Guest in his weekly segment like we always hear from. And how is the weather in Oxford, Mississippi at the moment?
Well, Stephen, we had the front come through yesterday, and the wind howled all night. We're going to get some big wind today. We're supposed to have my son's got a game. It's going to be 20-plus mile-an-hour winds this evening. Got pushed back from last night, so it's cool. It was 45 this morning. I think it was 68 last night. So we got a little cool weather and some high winds for ball today, and it's supposed to warm back up, though. By the weekend, I think we'll be back in the 60s or 70s, so looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a situation. When I lived in Italy, there was the one time that you had to deal with on that island 25-mile-an-hour winds pretty consistently, and you have to take a PT test where half of your test is going against the wind and half of it is at your back. And when I took my morning walk this morning, the wind was picked up here. It's like, hey, this feels like La Maddalena a little bit.
Yeah, I like to ride my bike, the one I pedal, I'm the motor of, and I don't ride a lot in Oxford. When I lived in central Mississippi, I had a route, and if the wind was right, if I was riding into the wind, I labored that 10 miles or so. But when I went home, it was like a wind, and, sails in the wind. Pushing, I would average, 5, 6, 7 miles an hour faster with the wind on my bike, which was so much fun.
Yeah,
against the wind was not fun.
No, it's not fun. And speaking of not fun, let's talk Ole Miss baseball at the moment. And Ole Miss is at number 1 as this video airs. The last game of a 3-game series is happening. No, this Friday night, the second game of the 3-game series happening. And number 1 Arkansas, they've pounded people. They have some pretty good pitching. Now, it would not surprise me for Mike Bianco to go up there and get a game. That would not surprise me even in the slightest. But after Ole Miss lost in the midweek to Memphis, they got swept at home to Kentucky. I don't know if you can bank on that.
Yeah, I mean, and Stephen, just to give folks a little background, football drives your show. You're a football guy. We've had season tickets to basketball and football, and we've done other sports at Ole Miss, but we're a baseball family. We've had tickets since the 90s. We were there before they expanded the stadium. I know it's the house that Mike built and all those things. And I've had season tickets in at least 5 different locations where I've sat over the years, and you get to know people. You get to know the rational folks and the irrational folks, and those kind of things. And I will say this, that during game 2 of the Kentucky series this year, we sit up behind home now, not in the high dollar seats, but in some pretty good seats behind home. And some of the rational folks that I've never heard too many crosswords about Bianco, other than maybe a decision every now and then, talked about the fact that maybe he should have retired after the 2022 College World Series win. I also have someone who would have fought you if you had screamed fire Bianco in the past say to me this week, just like Saban, I think the game has passed him by. I don't know that I agree with that, but for this person to say that, I'm just telling you, Stephen, this person has been one of the biggest defenders of Mike Bianco in Oxford, Mississippi for over a decade. And for this person to say that to me, things have gone sideways. It wouldn't surprise me if he wins one in Arkansas, but the way we're playing right now, I'm not sure it's going to happen. We hit the ball hard against Memphis, but we hit it at people, and then they rolled off those runs. I'm just not sure. I will say I was at the first 2 games of Kentucky. The umpires squeezed the zone, and when you squeeze the zone, people can hit it. But you can't blame squeezing the zone on getting blown out and giving up, 572 runs in a weekend to Kentucky. So I don't know what it is, but
they got squeezed.
Not very good. We're staring 3-12 in the face right now. We're staring 3-12 in the face right now is what we're staring.
And you mentioned that the game passing Mike by, and like I said, I don't know if I agree with that, but one thing that I have questions about now that I didn't have questions about before is, can he construct a roster in this modern transfer portal era of college sports? Because I was sitting here thinking, if you had to say what type of a baseball team Ole Miss is, what would you say?
You thought they were going to be offensive, especially after the pitchers went down, but we're not. Outside of maybe 3 big innings all year, what do we have?
They don't hit for average. They don't hit for power, like up 1 through 9 in the lineup. They're not dirt bags on the base path. Defensively, they're shambolic at this point. Their starting pitching is not there.
I'm talking about all the places I've sat and all the people I've met over the years. And I still, there are people that I go find every time I'm at a game, you go wave at them, or I may go sit by them and talk to them for a little bit. There are people over the years that I have heard this statement: Ole Miss is where hitters come to die. And it's a terrible statement, but you think about some of the guys and how well they hit early on. And some of that's other coaches adjusting, but some of these people that claim to know more about baseball talk about philosophies and everything else. And I don't know if any of it's true. But I mean, we're supposed to be hitting the ball and have all these great players that came in. I mean, and they're just not getting it done on a consistent basis. And they're not hurt. You know, pitching, you can understand he's shuffling around trying to figure out who can make a pitch win. But good golly, I mean, we just are not all that good right now.
And everybody talks about, by the way, I am going to defend Bianco here, because everybody talks about Ole Miss being the last team in the NCAA tournament field in 2022. Kevin Graham was out for a month. The heart and soul of that team was out for a month. They were good before it. He was good when they came back, and they struggled when he was out. I mean, so don't put on everything. Kevin Graham was just a special player.
And the other side of this is all those people that want to detract on Bianco, he still is the coach who won the World Series in 2022. So if you're going to dog on him for all the other years, you got to give him credit for that year, because he was the coach. And I've said that myself. And in 2014, I will admit, and Bianco he probably watched this show religiously, I know, so he won't like me anymore.
Oh yeah.
In 2014, I said they went in spite of his coaching, because I felt like it wasn't where it needed to be, but he's still the coach that won it in 2022. So people can't deny that. And I also said it when it happened. He just bought himself however long he wants in Oxford.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is no firing Mike Bianco. Anybody talk about that? There's none of that. That's only the point where Mike Bianco decides he wants to step away.
Well, look, and I had this conversation yesterday of when we were filming this. Somebody was talking to me about Bianco and being mad about it. I said, what are we going to do? Okay, so you want to fire him right now. What's going to happen the rest of the season? I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense. Let him go out in class. There's no need to get rid of him, no need to fire him. Just let it happen when it happens, because are we going to get better? The players are the ones making all the errors right now. The players are the ones not hitting the ball. I mean, he you know, say what you want to, but I mean, they got to perform under pressure, and it's not happening right now.
Yeah. Well, let's change the subject to a little bit happier thing. Almost got a commitment from Akylin Deer from Quitman. My Quitman story that people have always known. You probably know this one. You probably remember it, but I actually had a comment asking about it. Whenever I was a kicker in high school, playing for McGee High School, we played at Quitman. We were beating the heck out of them. I think we won the game like 60-6 or something like that. But on one of the kickoffs, their kickoff returner broke through, and it was up to me to stop him. I was about 6'1", 135 pounds at that moment, and he was a pretty well put together dude, and he just absolutely flattened me. But his foot got caught under my face mask, which led to him tripping. So I was able to bring him down. So the coach rewound that back like 10, 15 times during film session on Monday. But the fact of the matter is, he did not score, and I did my job. It didn't matter how I did it. Yeah, he went down.
Right. He went down. Didn't matter. He went down.
So, but that guy was not Akylin Deer. That guy was not even an MC level prospect. Akylin Deer is the best running back out of high school in the country. And he runs the like Dexter McCluster, and he's 210 pounds.
Look, I wrote that down. He reminds me of McCluster. How does he move like this at his size? Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. I mean,
it's Reggie Bush-esque, honestly.
Yeah, he can catch the ball. He can run over you. He can absolutely truck you if you try to tackle him. He breaks so many tackles. And the other thing I noticed when I was watching his highlights, how many highlights where he was handed the ball was he not even touched? Hmm. I mean, and he would go by 7, 8 defenders on his side of the field, and he wouldn't even be touched. I'm like, this is crazy.
Not a very good look for Southeast Mississippi football.
Well, Yeah, but he's special. He's so look, and when he hit the open field, his top end speed. If you weren't already there, you weren't going to catch him. You just weren't going to catch him.
He's Quinchon with another gear, is what he is.
He's
yeah.
I even wrote down small scat back. Like he looked and moved like a small scat back, but he's not a small. I mean,
that is one description that I nailed, because when you look at the video of him, you think he's 175, 180 pound running back. And then you look at it, he's like, oh man, he's over 200 pounds.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and the other thing I noticed, especially there was a couple of direct snaps he took in his highlights, and his patience and vision. He didn't just explode towards the hole. He found the hole. And then when it presented itself, you blinked and he was already on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It was just his explosion. Oh my gosh, was just amazing.
And another kid from that same recruiting class that Ole Miss is recruiting. Now, he's not being recruited as a running back, although there's some video of him playing running back, but he's recruited as a slot receiver as Jamorrian Morrow, the running back out of Germantown. He's Elijah Moore, honestly.
Look, I heard you call him Percy Harvin-esque. He wears number 1. The highlight video I watched said WR space RB space safety or S. And dude, it was like, you talk about phone booth, the quickness he moved with, like when he had the ball in his hands, he could make you miss him if you were on top of him. And then when you hit him, he didn't go down easy. I also thought the funniest thing I saw in this whole highlight reel, the hardest hit he took was after he picked one off at safety, and it was an offensive guy that just kamikaze style went after him and took his legs out. He didn't get hit hard on. And then I watched him break down on defense. Maybe he wasn't defending the pass, but he was coming in on a run or a short screen or something, an out route, and he was going to tackle a guy. When he broke down and you were shifty, he was more shifty following you than he was when he had. I was like, how does a human do this? I called McCluster an alien. He's alien-esque too. I even said that he reminded me of McCluster at times. They both do. And so I'm excited about this guy. I hope we get him. I don't know if we will, but Germantown High School is no slouch of a school. They play big schools. So it's not, you mentioned South Mississippi with the other guy with Adair, much smaller schools and stuff. But with this guy, he's playing big time people and making them look silly, running away from people. And, exciting stuff.
He honestly reminds me of watching him, his video. It's like somebody playing Dance Dance Revolution. That's how it looks whenever he's running. I mean, he's going back over and everything. He's going directions that normal human beings, like just watching his highlight video tears my ACL.
Yes. And look, the balance he was able to keep on some of those moves. I mean, like McCluster, I remember watching McCluster run one time. I think it was LSU or Florida. It was here at Oxford. And he made this cut, and it looked like his body was parallel to the ground somehow, but his feet were still on the ground. And I was like, how does this even, like a human can't do what he just did.
Yeah.
And then he stood back up and kept running. I was like, how does this even work? And I mean, Morrow had a time where he actually slipped. He went to cut back. He slipped. Both feet went in front of him. Somehow he got his feet back underneath him and was gone in a blink. And both other guys were just sitting there going, what just happened?
Yeah, I think that's a name that Ole Miss fans should watch over the next couple of weeks to see what happens. Now, here's the Star Watchers, only one service has him as a 4-star. The other ones have him as a 3, and that is because he's a positionless player. Remember, whenever they're ranking, they need every player to be as similar as possible so they can be ranked.
Mm-hmm.
If you are positionless, if you're playing mostly running back, but you are essentially an athlete, it's going to be problematic at best for people rating it. I don't even think ESPN has rated him at this point. I think On3 or 24/7 has him as a 4-star and the rest has him as 3. So we'll see exactly how it goes. But no matter what happens, if Ole Miss gets this guy and the rankings don't change even a little bit, that doesn't mean that people should be less excited about him as a football player. Because
if you're not excited, go watch it. Go watch the highlights is all I got to say.
Yeah, it was one of those situations. I'm watching this huddle film, and I'm like, okay, I'm excited. The moment, there's been very few running backs in my career in football that has gotten me excited. And I was in Rivals probably in 2006, 2007, 2008, sometime in there. and Noel Devine film popped up. And that is a situation where I was like, ooh, this is fun. Lake Seastrunk was another running back that did the same thing as far as high school film. That's what Jamorrian Morrow did to me with the film, because it's just a fun watch.
It is. It is.
So thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team, every single day. Josh Guest joining us like he always does. I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Enjoy this weekend. We've got Max Chadwick from PFF going to be on this weekend. We got Brian Smith that's going to talk probably about Jamorrian Morrow a little bit more, and we'll talk about Akylin Deer and reset all that as well. So take care. We'll see you a little bit later on this week. Hotty toddy, everyone.
Hotty toddy, and I hope the Diamond Ribs get hot.
Seriously, they need to.